Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work.
Hello, smart people. How are you today? I am recording this from Russia, where I am currently in a cellar in my family's country house just outside of Moscow. It's been quite warm, well, everywhere but the cellar. So I've been playing tennis and I'll be going horse riding, and we're also hosting a big garden party this weekend, which I'm excited and nervous about. And before we launch into today's episode about dependencies, I want to continue our quotes tradition. Today, we have a wisdom from a gentleman called Karl von Clausewitz. He was a Prussian general and military theorist who lived in the 1800s. So what did Karl have to tell us? He said that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. I love learning languages, and I actually think that this is what we are doing here together. By listening to this podcast, you are learning to speak tech. You are learning the language of tech. And this makes you more aware of the modern world around you and allows you to be an active participant in it. So I think Karl von Clausewitz would approve of us. And if one of the things that you want to do is to build a tech-enabled business and you're wondering how on earth to raise money for it, then I got your back, baby. I'm holding a workshop on fundraising for non-technical founders on the 19th of September. And there are literally 4 tickets left last time I checked. So if you want to grab one of those last tickets, then go on and do that. The link is in the show notes, or you can just go to techfornontechies.co/fundraising-workshop. That's techfornontechies.co/fundraising-workshop. Whenever you've been working in a particular industry or you just become a subject matter expert, you forget that what's obvious to you isn't knowledge that people are actually born with. And I think this is particularly prevalent in the tech sector, and also having worked in finance, it happens in finance too. In tech, when you work with people who've been coding since they were 8, you're basically speaking to somebody who's been practicing something since they were a kid. And if you're trying to understand it for the first time when you're, say, 36, you're going to have some issues, to put it mildly. And this is what I'm aiming to help you with this podcast, to teach you concepts that are intuitive to the techies so that you can understand how the tech world around you works. And this will help you make the right investment and career decisions and just be a conscious consumer of what's going on around you every day. And today we're going to have a super foundational concept: dependencies in the tech stack. Now, my darling smart person, if you just switched off and decided that this was too hard, come back to me. I promise you, it's a super simple concept that you can understand even if you just smoked 2 fat joints. The concept of dependencies is relevant to technology, both in the software and in the hardware space in general. But I'm going to demonstrate it to you in the software space in a way that you can easily see. Now let's imagine that you have an app and your app is on the Apple App Store. Whatever your app does, it's going to be made up of various coding languages and various tools. All the technology that goes into making your app is called a tech stack. Literally, a tech stack is all the stuff that your developers and designers are using to make sure that the app has screens, can communicate with other apps, can store your information, allow you to log in and share your content, and basically do all the stuff that your app does. Some of those tools and code have been custom made by your team, but some of them have been bought from other companies. And some of the tools also serve as connections to the wider internet world. And now you're thinking, what on earth is she going on about? So let's just forget apps for a second and imagine that you are building a house. And when you're building a house, you can imagine that some of the work is going to be custom made. So, for example, there will be bricklayers and they will lay bricks one on top of the other to build your walls. And so that will be a custom made wall in your house. But you will also buy some other stuff off the shelf, like you'll buy a bathtub. And yet other parts of your house can only function if they're connected to the wider world. So, for example, you've got your walls and you also have this beautiful bathtub, but it's kind of useless if you have no water. So you need to connect to the water main using some pipes. And that's basically you connecting to the wider world. That's you connecting to an ecosystem. So your house cannot really function well unless it's part of an ecosystem. And so it goes with building a technology application. So let's go back to our app. Your app is made up of various parts that are connected to each other. Since your app is made up of different things that are all connected to each other, it means that for one part to work, the others have to work too. So each part is dependent on something else. And that's why you have the concept of dependencies. See? It's not that hard. Told ya. Anyway, the main concept here is that tech products are not lone wolves. The success of your app depends on other products within that app. Independence in tech isn't really a thing. Every product is plugged into an ecosystem in one way or another. And if parts of that ecosystem go down, but everything in your app is perfect, so if all your custom-made stuff is perfect, but there's something wrong in the ecosystem, you're still going to have problems. Yes, I know, the world is sometimes unfair. And yeah, I'm sure that there are exceptions if you're building some kind of top secret government thing. But since it's top secret, clearly I don't know about it, so we're not going to talk about that. If this is all starting to go over your head, here is a dependency we all know. Operating systems. We decided that your app is on the Apple App Store. And what is the Apple App Store? It is a software ecosystem. So it's a system that's supported by Apple's engineers. As many of you know, Apple releases a new version of its software every year in September. You know, like when Steve Jobs used to do these fancy presentations and unveil new products like new versions of the iPhone or the AirPods, and it was basically like a fashion show. Well, one of the products being unveiled was the iOS. That's the Apple operating system. And so how is that relevant to dependencies? Well, if your app is on the Apple App Store, the Apple system will update. That means your engineers need to keep up with Apple's updates. So if Apple makes an upgrade to its system, all the apps sitting on the Apple App Store will also have to upgrade some aspects of themselves. Obviously, this means that Apple has even more power than you previously thought. But it also means that tech products are constantly evolving, even if they don't actually want to evolve themselves. In one of the earliest episodes of this show, I talked to you about the cyclical production process of apps, sites, and algorithms. That episode is called The Most Important Thing About Tech. Go back and listen to that because it is one of the foundation concepts. In summary, software products, basically, they're not like chairs. You don't just make it once and then you just use it forever. You have to keep iterating and releasing new versions regularly. Some of those versions are going to be based on the feedback that you get from your users. You might release a new feature and then you'll track how people use it, and then you realize that 80% of your current users hate the new feature, and so you basically kill it in the next version. So that's iterating based on your users' needs and on your product vision. But there's something else. Software products also have to keep iterating based on all the stuff that goes into making them. So if the infrastructure that builds the product is updating, you literally have no choice but to update along with it. If your app is on Apple, you have to keep updating it when Apple makes updates to its system. If you use Amazon Web Services to store data, you have to keep up with AWS development. And listen, as a non-techie, I don't want you to think that you need knowledge of every dependency. I actually don't think a single person in a company would know all of them. And if that person exists, tell them to get a life, take them out for a drink, introduce them to a sexy person. The reason I taught you this concept of dependencies today is that it shows you just how interconnected the tech world is. If Apple or Google Play make a change, then everyone on those app stores has to make a change too, and that change has a cost. This means paying developers to implement this change. So what big tech companies do affects literally every digital product you are using in ways that you cannot see. In other words, big tech is bigger and more powerful than you previously thought because of these invisible interconnected dependencies. If you're building product or you're investing in them or you're leading innovation at a large company, you need to be aware that some of the time and money that your product team spends will go on taking care of something that you can't see. But essentially, if they don't take care of it, your product won't work. That's why I really want you to know about it. So that is your knowledge for today. And literally, I bet that the only people who know about the concept of dependencies are developers and the people who listen to this podcast. So you have joined the non-techie elite. Welcome. Come in, the water's lovely. On this note, I'm going to leave you to hang out with my own dependencies, i.e. my lovely and insane family. Don't forget, if you want to join the Fundraising for Non-Technical Founders workshop on the 19th of September, you have to do so now because there are literally 4 spaces left. So get your ticket at techfornontechies.co/fundraising-workshop. And the link for that is also in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, then give it a rating and review. I literally read every review. And honestly, the reviews and the ratings really help spread the word to other smart people like you so we can get inside more ears and brains. And if you're loving what you're learning, because who wouldn't, then come and join us as a member at Tech for Non-Techies. Our membership is your guide in the jargon-filled world of tech. We have live sessions and masterclasses with expert teachers. You also get coaching sessions with me and learning notes on key aspects of technology like AI, product management, and the app economy. Our members include alumni of Harvard, Oxford, and of course the University of Chicago, people who are buying companies, building businesses, and leading innovation. And this is pretty epic, and I'm so proud of my community. If you want to join us, then check us out on techfornontechies.co/membership. That's it for now, smart people. I'll speak to you next week. Ciao.